Did you know VMware Cloud on AWS can save you millions? It's true. We commissioned trusted third-party research companies who conducted detailed business value studies to figure out exactly how much. Let's begin by reformatting your apps for the new platform. Just kidding. We let you skip that step. And it makes quite a difference. As you know, an app runs across multiple virtual machines. But did you know translating a single virtual machine to a public cloud can take anywhere from 11 hours up to 27 days? So for 1,000 VMs, that's at least 11,000 hours, or around 5 years of work on the low end. But with VMware Cloud on AWS, you can move 1,000 VMs in a matter of weeks. Put a couple engineers on it, and they'll be done in under a month. And of course, VMware Cloud on AWS also comes with a full VMware Cloud Foundation set of features, including a wide array of tools to protect customers from outages. So what do the numbers say? Well, our customers can save up to 57% of the overall cost of their migration to the cloud. They can bring down their data center operating costs by 44% and deliver 83% less unplanned downtime. Plus, vSphere's oversubscription feature is like getting 25% more CPU and memory for free. All this adds up to one undeniable fact. VMware Cloud on AWS is less expensive than on-prem or the public cloud. So, what could you save? Contact a VMware rep and ask for a Cloud Economics TCO assessment to find out.
The pandemic really did accelerate the digital wave of change by easily 3 to 5 years.
We transitioned to all virtual care.
We're better positioned to accelerate.
Fast forward to today, we have a truly profound, permanent structural transformation.
Now our team can look at hundreds of calls in minutes instead of weeks.
Our business has really been transformed with the help of Google Cloud. We have spikes in demand. We can scale 4 times in less than 5 minutes.
Schrödinger is transforming the way scientists are developing drugs. Chemical space is almost infinite. We can do things we couldn't do before.
Can't I just track by shipment? We think that we can help solve that for the supply chain.
How can we help workers with artificial intelligence?
Suddenly, lots of ideas become interesting.
We're very excited to develop our artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Access to innovation, the speed of innovation.
Seconds, milliseconds all matter.
We're rethinking routine and pioneering simplicity.
The partnership with Google Cloud provides us with technology that will drive us to be better.
When imagination ran away with me, it took me by the hand and led me away on an adventure adults wouldn't understand. It showed me glorious green forests and silvery snow-capped mountains, ancient ruins and relics, and exploding fantastical fountains. It took me to a magical world where dragons roam, cauldrons foam, and children saved the world alone. It showed me what the world could be if no one put restraints on me.
By 2030, the world as we know it will be dramatically transformed. The metaverse will open up endless opportunities across consumer, enterprise, and industrial sectors. Digital physical fusion and human augmentation will transform how people interact in a combined physical and digital reality. None of this will be possible without the network. It will need to become more intelligent, dynamic, scalable, and secure. evolving to enable a rich multi-party value ecosystem that will unleash innovation and opportunity, creating sustainable solutions for some of the world's biggest challenges, all made possible through Nokia's innovations. This is our vision for 2030. Together, we're creating the future.
Hybrid work is here. It's there. It's everywhere. But for someone to be able to work from here or here, there has to be someone here, making sure everything is safe, secure, consistent. So go ahead, log in from here, dial in from here, sit in from here, assured that someone is here with a view of everywhere, ready to fix anything, anytime, anywhere, even here. That's because nobody, and I mean nobody, makes hybrid work better. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
What does a reliable internet connection mean for your business?
It means quicker fulfillment through accurate and timely shipment tracking.
It means smoother operations and upgrading my business to be future ready.
It means stronger security for convenient and worry-free transactions.
It means better customer experience. When via system, anytime, anywhere.
It means easier management, even in a hybrid learning environment.
For me, it means happier customers with a trusted partner who helps me grow my business.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Philippine Digital Convention 2022 Boundless. This is your day 2, and welcome to the Tech Leadership Forum. Please welcome your host, Miss Danny Laurel.
Good morning, bright and early this Friday morning to our dearest delegates. Day 2 of Boundless, the Philippine DigiCon 2022 brings you today's Tech Leadership Forum. I'm Danny Laurel, and I'm very much looking forward to all of our sessions today. Now, there's no denying that the Philippines is shaping up to be the next hyperscale hub of Asia Pacific as our country continues to gain the global market's attention. Now, in this discussion, we will be doing a deep dive into how the country is accelerating its digital growth and transformation through major hyperscale builds in data center, international connectivity, 5G, and IoT, with, of course, the end goal is to create a hyperscale ecosystem that is founded upon sustainability. So let's talk about how we are powering the hyperscale revolution. This session is brought to you by PLDT Enterprise, Smart, ePLDT, and PLDT Global, and is co-presented by Cisco. We would also like to thank our official event partners. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will be very happy to hear all of your thoughts and comments. Go ahead and post your feedback in our chat box or on your social media accounts. please do use our official event hashtag. That is hashtag PHDigicon 2022. Of course, did you know you could also win a raffle prize? Simply accomplish the survey form to qualify for the raffle. Up for grabs are very, very exciting prizes. All right, now it's time to kick off this very timely discussion. Now, our first topic is benchmarking the sustainable infrastructure build in Southeast Asia. And opening our first session, let us call on the Managing Director of S&P Technology, Mr. Jer Hong Phua.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this presentation. Really honored to be invited here. Unfortunately, I'm down with some sickness, so I have to do this remotely. But let's get on with the presentation. I'm very sure you would like to hear more about the Philippines as a hyperscale data center market, as well as how sustainability is becoming mission critical in terms of hyperscale data center market. So without further ado, can we go to next slide, please? Next one, please. Okay, now let's start off by talking about the data center growth drivers. Data center growth drivers are absolutely strong in Asia Pacific, especially in the Philippines. There are several major growth drivers. First of all, obviously, is the digital transformation through cloud service adoption. I think the second one is the implementation of big data infrastructure and big data analytics. And the third component of that has been driving data center growth here in this region is the exponential increase in IoT investment in IoT across supply chain, across commercial, as well as retail sectors. Now, the next growth driver is the increased demand for co-location by business due to sustainability. A lot of our enterprise data centers, they are shutting down and moving into a co-location environment, or perhaps they are even moving into a sort of a hybrid environment, partly with enterprise data center and co-location data center. These are a drive to reduce the PUE requirements in terms of sustainability. Now, the final factor that I want to talk about, which is most important in terms of driving the demand in data center, is the digital usage trend of a country's population. Especially countries with young, digitally savvy populations. These countries are becoming the biggest market for global tech giants, and that's why we're very bullish about the Philippines. Filipinos are popularly known as the most avid social media users. I think, as you all know, in the Philippines, everyone loves Japanese and Korean pop culture, right? And there's a high social media consumption that even drive companies like Mita platform to place workload locally in Manila. Additionally, ByteDance is also reported to expand its deployment in the Philippines. So based on the digital market research report, it's been stated that there were about 92 million non-unique social media users in January 2022 in the Philippines alone. That's almost like a third of the entire US population. Therefore, in our view, no one should fight demographic trends and bet against demographic trends, especially when it comes to tech adoption, as well as the emergence of Philippines as a hyperscale data center market. Next slide, please. So what all these demands are doing are actually formed in 2015, right? In terms of operating power, right? APAC has increased from a 14,000 megawatt capacity to a 32,000 megawatt capacity by 2022. So we project that demand will continue to grow, and double almost 5 years. Now, what about the supply side? Is the supply side catching up, right? The data center growth drivers obviously leads to aggressive demand increase, but it also actually translates into aggressive data center capacity built across the region. Now, you can see from this particular chart, right? APAC has almost tripled its capacity since the beginning of this particular PowerPoint this slide, this graph, right? And it's expected to triple by 2026. And I think in our view, by 2026, APAC will actually overtake North America as a region with the largest data center capacity. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, what are the things that are driving the hyperscale demand, right? One of the things that you watched from the video just now is that COVID-19 has really pushed the boundary in terms of digital transformation. A lot of companies are actually taking their 5-year plan originally, something that they want to do in the next 5 years, and actually accelerate the implementation, right? So in terms of that, actually it has been driving digitalization across in various sectors. And above and beyond, the regular sectors that are doing a fair bit of a digital transformation, such as financial services, insurance, manufacturing, e-commerce. Now there are new sectors that are contributing to the demand. So we are seeing a fair bit of government sectors, right? Education, media, advertising, transforming their processes, their channels into a digital platform, right? And of course, one of the key things that are driving hyperscaler growth and coming into the region are the young, digitally savvy population. And these are actually, in our work with all the major hyperscalers, this is actually one of the key driving factors of why they look into a particular market. And of course, the rise of the Chinese hyperscalers in the region is a force to be reckoned with. But going forward, we predict that the other APAC region outside of China will actually be growing even more, right? Excluding China, right? We are seeing APAC growth by at least $1 billion a year. Okay, Huawei and Tencent, they are already in the Philippines, and we predict that for the Chinese hyperscalers, more to come. I think looking into the Philippines as a hyperscaler market. Next slide, please. Okay, so in conclusion, how is Philippines as a hyperscale data center market? I think first and foremost, in our work with a lot of hyperscalers, be it from North America or from the Chinese mainland, I think one of the key things that they're looking at is population growth, right? Clearly, they do not want to fight demographic trends, right? And on top of that, they are looking at active media usage in the market itself. So the Philippines is positioned very nicely as the second largest population in Southeast Asia, and it's also one of the most active social media users in the world, as I mentioned earlier in the previous slide. Now, the Philippines has traditionally been underserved, right? The data has largely been hosted in countries like Singapore, Hong Kong, and Japan. But we're increasingly seeing that the Philippine market is not going to be underserved for going forward, in a sense that a lot of hyperscalers and a lot of companies, right, including private equities, investment management companies, they're looking into Philippines as the next hot destination, so to speak, to set up data center operations. Now, I think one of the key things that has been driving the Philippines data center market growth has been the growing hyperscale deployment, right, in the country. We have Google, we have AWS, right? We have Microsoft, we have Tencent, and Huawei. They are all in the Philippines market now, and we predict that through our work with the other hyperscalers, clearly, Philippines is definitely in the radar, and they are definitely looking into stepping into the Philippines in a major way. I think one of the key things that they are also looking at is not to actually build out, their own data center, right? They are in fact looking at a partnership with local data center service provider in launching their operations in the Philippines, right? And for us, we forecast a 5-year CAGR of 15%, right, in operational space between 2021 and 2026 for the Philippines. I think the Philippines growth, right, is actually supported by a lot of wonderful infrastructure build-up, the 5G deployment, right, the subsea cable systems, the IoT enhancement, and improvement, so on and so forth, actually makes the Philippines a very, very attractive data center market in terms of infrastructure. And in terms of what are the things that hyperscalers are looking for going forward, I think which is very critical is sustainability. I think it's mission critical for companies such as PLDT. Now, clearly, PLDT is the market leader, owns up to 80% of the market share in the Philippines. And of course, in terms of hyperscaler deployments, they are definitely looking at PLDT as the leadership in enabling their operations and in supporting their entrenchment or moving into the Philippines market. So let's talk about sustainability and what it means for PLDT or the Philippines in general. Next slide, please. Okay. In one of our survey, right, we found that of all the companies that took part in the survey, 80% of the companies, well, close to 80% of the company, say that the overall efficiency and sustainability of the energy available is either very important or somewhat important. So clearly, in terms of sustainability and energy efficiency, right, companies are no longer just talking the talk. They are also actually walking the talk, so to speak, right? So it has moved from a good to have to absolutely a must-have in terms of sustainability and energy efficiency. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. So in terms of sustainability, even though companies are really moving into implementing energy efficiency initiatives, etc., we found that APAC has still a lot of catching up to do. Now, based on Google Cloud's carbon tracking by region, APAC is actually almost double the size of North America plus Europe combined in terms of carbon footprint. So obviously, from a Google Cloud as well as all the hyperscalers perspective, partnering with the right partner, with the right sustainability model is definitely mission critical for them in terms of operating in the market. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, what are the business imperatives of green data centers? Now, as I said before, companies are taking action, right? You can tell that from this slide, Google aims to fully decarbonize by 2030, right? And Microsoft has actually made a pledge to say reverse, all the carbon emission that they have emitted since it was found in 1975, and they aim to accomplish that by 2050. Now, what about Amazon? Amazon pledged to utilize 100% of their renewable energy by 2030. And then they aim to become a net zero carbon emission by 2040. So this is just to give you a flavor of what are the hyperscalers looking at. Clearly, being green, being sustainable, having the best-in-class data center is no longer enough, but having a sustainable, energy, green efficiency data center is the going imperative going forward for all the hyperscalers operating in Asia Pacific. Next slide, please. Okay. So what are the components of a sustainable future? To a lot of our hyperscalers, there is also a two-step process, right? First of all, they want to continuously improve the carbon reduction efficiency. So, reduction in terms of PUE, right? Changing from a so-called oil and gas operating model into a sort of a sustainable model, such as using wind, water power, so on and so forth. Then from there is their aim to move into total decarbonization, right? And so it is a fairly long journey in terms of reaching a final destination, so to speak, in terms of having a sustainable future. Next slide, please. So can data centers be green? I think one of the key challenges, right, for Asia Pacific companies, specifically in Southeast Asia, is the tropical climate, especially in the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, so on and so forth, right? And the road towards sustainability in terms of, especially for Southeast Asian markets, right, is to transition from coal, oil and gas, as I previously mentioned, to renewable energy, such as wind, solar, hydraulic, and even geothermal power. So companies are beginning to explore options and looking at the options of perhaps moving data centers, first of all, right, into existing leaders that are able to be offer them the best carbon efficiency or energy efficiency model, and then eventually moving to a location whereby they have accessibility to the renewable energy, so to speak. Right? Next slide, please. Now, what are the renewable energy challenges, and what are the companies, especially data center providers, are doing? I think PLDT has been a very progressive and has been working with utility provider on power grid design and renewable energy requirements. And I think this is exactly what hyperscalers are looking for in the market. Right? Next slide, please. Okay, so in conclusion, right, sustainability is no longer something that people just talk about, right? It has moved from a nice to have to a need to have, and government regulations are demanding for it as well, and companies are actually willing to pay a premium for it, right? So in terms of sustainability, we think that it will become form a major topic now, to almost like something that is mission critical, right? And in terms of what are the things ahead to look out for, I think one of the key things that will represent a major challenge is the embodied carbon, which is basically the carbon emission from the beginning of the process of setting up a data center all the way to a decommissioning or destruction of a data center. So companies are looking at ways and wanting to have a way to substantially minimize that sort of a carbon footprint and perhaps even reverse the carbon emission through this end-to-end life cycle, so to speak, right? And data center industry has largely been focusing on PUE thus far. They see it as their core responsibility. However, going forward, I think improvement with water usage will take on a greater importance, because ultimately with water usage, right, it will actually lead to a even more sustainable future. Now, in terms of energy consumption in a data center, the energy consumption obviously is primary source of greenhouse gas emission, right? And completely eliminating such greenhouse gas emission is still many years away. Now we are seeing that across in the data center market industry, right? Companies are beginning to come to terms that they'll have to wait for new technology to come in before they can finally totally eliminate greenhouse gas. But for now, they are taking a stepwise approach in terms of trying to do what is best, to get there, right? So even after so-called the total elimination of greenhouse emission, right? I think one of the key things and the key challenge going forward is also to look at the sort of emission coming from backup power generation, right? There are companies right now, some of them at the sort of a startup stage, that are actually looking at this. And over the next, this decade, so to speak, you will begin to see a lot of all these companies, offering their services and products to further lead to a reduction in carbon footprint. And that ends my presentation. I really hope that you enjoy the slides and the presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was, of course, Mr. Jer Hong Phua. And we now have a chance to get up close with our next speakers as we present our fireside chat today. Now, our topic, of course, is sustainability as the hyperscale cornerstone. And joining me for this first part of the fireside chat, we have the first Vice President and Chief Sustainability Officer and the head of the Strategic Business Development of Meralco. He is also the President and CEO of Isakai Incorporated. Let us all welcome Mr. Raymond Ravelo. All right. Now, what a presentation, Raymond. He illustrated earlier on how the Philippines is one of the most penetrated in terms of internet, but also in terms of demographic. And that is clearly what is driving this hyperscaler growth. And I'm just going to go right to the question in terms of the topic, no? So data centers here, and this has actually amplified the talk of renewable energy. Is it possible to power such an energy-intensive kind of situation with renewable energy? And how is Meralco planning to do this?
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone. And thanks, Danny. Good to see you again. And it's good to see a lot of familiar faces here. But I think you're absolutely right. And coming from the presentation of Mr. Phua, it's very clear that renewable energy, clean energy is no longer a nice to have. It's a must have. No? And we in Meralco are very aware of that. We're very cognizant of that reality. And so in response to that, and I guess more broadly in response to the country's imperative to transition to cleaner energy, I'd like to think we've come up with a very clear plan and a strong program to address that. To that end, we've come up with what we call a twin commitment to boost renewable energy supply in the country. The first one is from a distribution utility standpoint, which is the core business of Meralco. We have pledged to secure 1,500 megawatts or 1,500 megawatts of our power requirements over the next 5 years from clean energy sources. And that is very much in line with the DOE's renewable portfolio standards, which if we are able to do, and I'm quite confident that we'll be able to do it, we'll be able to shift up to 30% of our supply portfolio today to renewable energy. So that's a big, big jump. in terms of greenifying our supply portfolio. So that's the first commitment. The second one is from a generation standpoint. As you very well know, Danny, in as much as we are a core distribution utility, we also have assets in power generation. No? And so we've come up with a twin commitment because we are pledged to build 1,500 megawatts of clean energy, attributable clean energy capacity in the next 5 to 7 years. In fact, we've started that. As early as last year, we built our very, very first solar farm. It's a 55 megawatt plant just north of Metro Manila in San Miguel, Bulacan. This year, we broke ground on another plant, a 75 megawatt plant in Baras, Rizal. So I think these are just a few first steps that we're taking on the road to 1,500. But you can certainly expect that over the next few years, we will accelerate this path.
All right, thank you for that update, Raymond. Now, I've hosted some Meralco events. I very much know that this is the core of what you are doing. But clearly, there are a lot of challenges in the country, whether it's regulation of the utility company, whether it's the need for energy security in many areas of an archipelago versus renewable energy and the stability of that grid. Give us an update of where we are right now when it comes to the challenges that we're facing in the renewable energy space.
I think you actually mentioned one of them already. I think broadly there are 3 challenges to RE, build out in the country. And that's really impeding and stymieing our growth. The first is economics, right? I think basic, right? Fundamentally, the economics of renewable energy are still, a little bit pale compared with fossil fuels. So fossil fuels like coal, natural gas still provide very affordable and very reliable energy. Now, as we all know, in the last few years, I think at least over the last decade, we've seen dramatic drops in the cost of RE technologies, hydro, wind, solar, but they still suffer from intermittency, diba? So if you think about it, and when I say intermittency, these solar resources are still unable to provide 24/7 by 365 power, much like maybe a coal plant could approximate. No? So, and in order for them to do that, we would need to attach energy storage or batteries. And these battery energy storage systems, unfortunately today, Danny, are still very expensive. So if you add that to the cost of a renewable energy plant, it typically throws the economics out of whack. The second, you mentioned it, regulatory. No? As a power supplier in Meralco, we operate under a least cost and technology neutral mandate, which is just a very sophisticated way of saying, whenever we secure power supply, we've got to go through a bidding process. Which means, at the end of the day, the least cost per kilowatt hour would typically win. And we can't say, we just have to buy RE. We can't do that. It's got to be technology neutral. The third challenge is really more technical or technological in nature, because if you think about it, solar farms, a lot of these RE facilities still require a lot of land per megawatt compared with a typical fossil fuel plant. And as I said earlier, as Meralco, in order to address or adopt that intermittency, we've got to put batteries into the grid. So that's the bad news, right? And I think it's not all bleak, it's not all gloomy. In fact, of late, there have been a number of developments in the renewable energy space that bodes well for the sector. First of all, we have, I mentioned it earlier, the Renewable Portfolio Standards. This is a policy of the government which actually requires utilities like ourselves to purchase an incremental 1% of our supply every year from RE sources. Just last month, about 4 weeks ago, that number went up to 2.52%. So that's great news, right? Effectively, it provides us a mandate, it provides us a legal basis to really say we're going to secure more and more renewable energy. So that's the first one. The second one is more around the liberalization of the foreign ownership of RE plants. Today, that is currently capped at 40%. And I think the DOE is working very closely with the Department of Justice to see if we can unhinge that, if we can unlock that, so we can encourage a lot more FDI and foreign direct investment into this very strategic and important space.
Okay, very clear answer there, no? And hopefully that does happen within this administration
I
that
hope.
comes to light.
I hope.
Now, Raymond, we saw in the presentation earlier the different kinds of countries and where they are in terms of renewable energy. Singapore, 95% from natural gas. And you did mention all of these challenges. How can Meralco work hand in hand with the government, for instance, in terms of making us keep in the same path as our peers, especially since the developments are going at different speeds when it comes to zero carbon?
I think that part of the question around different speeds is a very important part of the question. No? And it's a tough dilemma because I think to answer this question, we've got to, number one, recognize and understand and accept that it cannot happen overnight. Right? It's got to be a very well thought out, well planned transition. Otherwise, it's going to be too painful, particularly for the mass base of our people who are, spending a lot of money on their energy as it is today. Diba? So ultimately, in Meralco, we say it's got to be a just, orderly, and affordable transition to clean energy. Right? And what that really means is that as we look at these different decarbonization technologies, we've got to understand when they will be mature, not only technologically, but also economically. And we've got to phase them. So when Danny came up with our long-term sustainability strategy, I think RCE mentioned it the last time you had a conversation with him. We actually said, let's do this over a 30-year period, right? 2021 to 20, we started it last year. 2021, 2 years ago. We started in 2020 to begin in 2021 and all the way out to 2050, which, if you follow sustainability kind of articles, that's kind of the deadline that we have, about 2050. And so we said, let's break it down into phases, 21 to 30, 31 to 40, 41 to 50. And each of those phases is marked by a separate focus area. So I'll quickly illustrate that. 2021 to 2030 is where we are now focused on renewable energy deployment, hydro, wind, solar, right? Because it makes sense already as early as today. 2031 to 40 is when we will look at next generation clean technologies. The ones that are not necessarily available or economically viable today, but will be so in the next decade. So we're talking about longer duration energy storage, about 8 hours at least. We're talking about offshore wind, which recently came out in the news. And the third one we're taking a look at is nuclear. And this came out in President Marcos's SONA a few months ago. And we're looking specifically at small modular reactors. So I don't want to get too technical about it, but that's, we can spend the whole day talking about why SMRs are actually a good thing. And then as we move to the last decade, 2041 to 2050, then we are now looking at deep decarbonization. So we have to catch up, no? And it's really about deploying things such as hydrogen, carbon capture, utilization, and storage, and maybe even greater offset. So really our goal is to be ultimately coal-free by the midpoint of the century.
All right, so 30-year plan there.
30-year
I think
plan,
pragmatism is winning here.
Yes,
Low-hanging
yes.
fruit muna, as
Low-hanging
RCE
fruit, yeah.
mentioned, and a balancing act, of course, between
Correct.
the economic cost of renewable energy and the climate cost of carbon. Now, another question, you are, of course, looking at Meralco as a whole as well. On the one hand, these initiatives for renewable energy are benefiting everyone, but you are trying to walk the talk in Meralco as well. What other initiatives are you implementing within the group apart from this energy transition?
I'm glad you asked that because, again, we talk a lot about decarbonization and energy transition, but in as much as it's really core to our sustainability strategy, it's only one part of it. When we came up with a sustainability agenda, we said we'd like to make it very comprehensive. And so when we crafted it about 2 or 3 years ago, we said we want to root it, obviously in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the UN SDGs. And if you look very closely at the SDGs, I was just chatting with Melissa earlier, it's really not just about the planet, right? There's a lot of diverse goals. There's social justice, there's human rights, there's gender equality. So, they're very different, very diverse goals. But the one tie that, if you look at it closely, the one tie that binds all of them together is the desire for better lives, right? Ultimately, to help people lead and enjoy better lives. And so that's exactly why we called our sustainability in Meralco Powering the Good Life, right? Because effectively, that's our role in the power sector, to help contribute to better lives for all our stakeholders. And if you distill powering the good life into its components, there really are four, right? So we call it our 4 Ps, right? Power, which is the first P, is what houses our energy transition initiative. The next P is planet, right? And this is about reducing our emissions, reducing our waste. Maybe if I can just very quickly share, we're very proud that we're getting very serious about electric vehicles, in Meralco. In fact, we have deployed more than 120 electric vehicles in Meralco to date, 128 to be exact. And if you look within Metro Manila, all our business centers are already serviced by all electric vehicles, right? And we're going to continue to up that. Our goal by 2030 is to have at least 25% of our fleet electric. So that's part of the planet pillar. The third pillar is people, right? Ultimately, it's making sure that we build a sustainability mindset in our organization while creating a very inclusive, a very safe workplace. And so one program that maybe I'd like to talk about there is our Gender Diversity and Inclusion Program. We call it Embrace, right? Everything in Meralco starts with an M. Meralco, Empower, M-Serve, M-Spectrum. Ito sabi namin, okay, inclusion, so embrace, right? So, and really our goal is to increase women representation in Meralco. Today, that number is 22% of our population. That's actually quite high already, because globally, the energy sector is about 11%, so we're double the number. But, again, RC said we got to push harder, so we're targeting to get that to 40% by 2030. But it's not just about the numbers, right? We're trying to get more women coaches, more training for our women, so they can also go up the ladder and really take on more senior management roles. The last P, so we have power, planet, people. The last P is prosperity. And I think, ultimately that's the most important. And here we house our initiatives to take advantage of our position as a big company to inform, and maybe like these forums, to inform, influence, and ideally inspire more people to become more sustainable. And we do this for all our stakeholders, our customers like yourselves, our communities, and even our constituents. For customers, you probably noticed last year we created a new bill format where you see not only how much you have to pay and how much energy you actually used, but how many trees it will take to offset the amount of energy that you used up. So hopefully in the spirit of making you more conscious and more energy efficient. For our communities, again, very happy to share, we've built solar rooftops on Gawad Colinga communities in Santa Rosa, Laguna. And beyond just providing them clean power, we said, look, why don't we give them some livelihood? So we actually onboarded them as our installers and as our maintenance folks for these solar panels. So that kind of helps bring more prosperity. And then lastly, maybe a last program I'd like to share for our constituents, our suppliers. We implemented the Meralco Supplier Sustainability Scorecard, which means that if you want to supply Meralco with your goods, you've got to meet not only our economic and technical standards, but also our supplier sustainability principles if you want to continue your accreditation with the company. So far, we've touched a majority of our suppliers, I think now representing 95% of our spend. So it's our little part to encourage everybody to get on this very important effort.
Very impressive indeed. And you are celebrating 120 years this year, diba? 120 years.
March.
And for those of you who don't know, it's one of probably the oldest company. I can't think of something that's older than 120 years here in the Philippines.
Right, that's right.
Longer than the independence. So, of course, big celebration there, but also moving forward into the goals of the future, the next 30 years.
Absolutely.
And hopefully seeing more isakays in our streets,
Sana.
Especially as the head of Isakai yourself. So thank you so much. Round of applause, please, for Raymond, First Vice President and Chief Sustainability Officer, Head of Strategic Business Development of Meralco, and of course, President and CEO of Isakai. Thank you, Raymond.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so from the experience of Meralco in driving sustainability and their goals for their own company as well as for the Philippines, let's still delve into this sustainability as a hyperscale cornerstone. And I would like to call in our next Fireside Chat guest. We have with us the Chief Sustainability Officer and Head of Investor Relations at PLDT and Smart, Ms. Melissa Vergel de Dios. All right, so we come from Meralco over to PLDT, which is of course the tech company. What does sustainability mean to a telco player? And it's not just telecommunications player anymore. It's now the leading technology company in the country, one of the biggest in Asia as well. How do you maintain sustainability within a tech firm?
Okay, for PLDT, sustainability has actually been identified as one of the key pillars of our strategy. Other than customer centricity, the new sources of profitable growth, operational efficiency, and the best place to work. As a company, we realize that it's actually our responsibility to be a steward of the planet for the next generation. And to be able to ensure continuity of PLDT's existence, we need to be able to do business responsibly. Now for PLDT, sustainability is not a standalone project. It's actually part of everything we do. It's part of day-to-day operations. It's part of the culture and the DNA. So effectively, I think from a sustainability standpoint, it's not only about sustainability in the data centers, but it's in everything that PLDT as an organization does and commits to.
All right. Now, ma'am, of course, the main issue of this panel is hyperscaling and data centers, which require a lot of power, and was already mentioned by Meralco. There's a goal to have renewable energy, but can we use that much renewable energy and powering such, power-intensive data centers? How is PLDT going to uphold the sustainability goals?
Okay, I guess given the limited source of renewable power at the moment from generators, what PLDT is doing is we're going to generate the power ourselves, right? Through the use of rooftop solar panels, which we've already done for our Clark data center. And it's something that's being designed into the new data center in Santa Rosa. And then I think what's interesting is beyond solar, for our Mindanao data center, for example, and our facilities in the Mindanao area, we're looking at tapping geothermal energy. So I think that renewables tend to focus on solar, but there's an abundance of geothermal energy in the Mindanao area, and we're just waiting for the operationalization of the WESM. And I think sometime in 2023, we will be able to power 6 of our facilities in Davao, including the Davao data center, using geothermal power.
Okay, so very interesting there. Now, generate your own renewable energy as part of the commitment of creating these data centers. Now, ma'am, of course, you're looking within the firm, and I'll ask the same question that I did to Sir Raymond. Apart from the whole energy transition into renewable energy, which you've already highlighted, what other measures is PLDT doing within the group to uphold sustainability?
All right, maybe at this point, I want to kind of highlight what we're doing as our other commitments. So obviously, on the environmental side, we crafted a decarbonization roadmap. So it sets a target for us to reduce our Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions by 40% come 2030. And that's basically underpinned by very specific initiatives. We're looking at the use of green technology for our network, the use of renewables, so we discussed that earlier. That also includes energy efficiency and power consumption focus to make sure that we're very efficient in the use of power. And then with our friends at Meralco or our relatives at Meralco, we're also looking at effectively refleeting to a green fleet. Obviously today, as Raymond said, the cost of an electric vehicle is unfortunately more expensive than what they call the internal combustion or ICE vehicles. But hopefully over time with scale and with legislation, that equation can shift in favor of EVs. So in the course of time, we're hoping to add more electric vehicles to the fleet. So that's under the E pillar. Under the social pillar, I think more importantly for PLDT as a telco, we have a very serious responsibility to make sure that the online environment is safe for our customers, right? So while the internet opens up a whole new world of opportunities to learn, to entertain, to work, there are also dangers that come with the internet and access to the internet. So we are putting in place very strong cybersecurity and data privacy initiatives to make sure that our customers are protected. And to that extent, I think we've spent something like 3 billion pesos on cybersecurity to date and continue to look towards how we can invest more to protect our customers. And then I think at this point, we also want to mention that the most vulnerable sector of our customers are children. So I wanted to just point out, maybe not relevant to the data center operators, but for us very seriously, we feel that we need to be able to protect children from what they call online sexual abuse and exploitive content. So we have been able to block, can you imagine, 1.3 billion malicious sites, 465,000 URLs, and effectively trying to protect that vulnerable sector of society. Then under the governance pillar, we are very proud of the corporate governance initiatives of PLDT. So not only listed on the Philippine Stock Exchange, we're listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and that makes us subject to the rigors of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So we have very strong policies on anti-corruption, anti-bribery, and we make sure that the organization stands by a very strong code of business ethics. So effectively so those are the commitments. Now, as a further commitment, we put sustainability targets as part not only of the CEO's scorecard, but for every employee of PLDT. So I guess that will ensure that everybody has sustainability in mind when they do their day-to-day operations. And then for those who are aware, we are members of the UNGC, the United Nations Global Compact, where we uphold things like human rights and so. So effectively, what we're basically saying to our potential hyperscaler clients is we're part of your scope 3. If you sign up with us, if you come with us, we are partners in making sure that we address sustainability together as partners.
Excellent update there. And of course, thank you so much for bringing up a very important issue in terms of protecting children now, because we in this forum, it's such a big forum, and we are opening the gates, a Pandora's box of opportunities, and with that come a lot of threats as well that we need to take care of. So very important point there. And like you mentioned, hopefully together with Meralco, we can see these e-Sakay vehicles from the PLDT fleet when the frontliners, of course, come to our own homes. Thank you so much. Of course, Melissa Vergel de Dios, Chief Sustainability Officer of PLDT and Smart and Investor Relations Head. We'll see you again for the panel discussion. All right, now after those two very interesting fireside chats, we now put the focus on powering the hyperscale revolution, Philippine digital infrastructure ecosystem. Tackling this is the Vice President and Head of Strategic Business Development, PLDT Enterprise. Let us all welcome Mr. Gary Ignacio.
Thank you, Danny, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Philippines is indeed in the advent of a hyperscale revolution. We have emerged as a formidable contender to becoming the next hyperscale hub in this part of the world. And our unique proposition as an attractive growth market, combined with the digital infrastructure boom and the heightened attention towards sustainability, continue to catch the attention of both the established and up-and-coming cloud and tech players globally. JH gave us a flavor of the encouraging digital development that is transpiring within the Asia-Pacific. And I'm just as excited to bring this closer to home and share how the Philippines is playing out in a very big way to contribute to this ongoing hyperscale phenomenon. The prospect of the Philippine digital economy continues to shine very bright thanks to a large digital-savvy population and the increasing propensity towards cloud across all business sectors. This naturally calls out for digital infrastructure build-out, that they remain in full swing to ensure that we scale up adequately in the face of accelerating demand. PLDT embraces the challenge of leading the charge towards aggressive digital infrastructure investments, for we are certain that only with such readiness will we be able to co-create the requisite digital ecosystem that will propel us to the next level of growth and allow us to fully harness the tremendous value that such could generate across all involved stakeholders. The recently launched Jupiter cable system, for instance, positions the Philippines as a strategic entry point to the Asia Pacific, as it connects our country directly to Japan and to the United States. Jupiter has become the country's fastest trans-Pacific cable system, delivering 40 terabits per second of additional international capacity for the country. Not only does it leverage the latest DWM technology that allows greater bandwidth delivery, it also brings about the benefits of an open cable model to ensure that we optimize the full bandwidth potential of the cable and flexibly scale to meet hyperscale connectivity requirements. Sustainability now runs deep into our corporate consciousness, and this was attested to by the past presentations that the recent speakers we have shared with all of you. Jupiter marked, for example, the first time, and definitely not the last, that we used horizontal directional drilling on the cable's final mile approach to our shorelines to make sure that we minimize the environmental disturbance within the marine life ecosystem that exists within there. Our subsea expansion covers not only Trans-Pacific, but intra-Asia as well. Thus, there's also the upcoming Asia Direct Cable, we call it ADC, that will increase our capacity going to and from different countries in Asia, such as Japan, China, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Thailand, and Singapore, by as much as an additional 36 terabits per second. The Philippine leg, in fact, is already expected to land in Batangas next month, in November, and we are excitedly looking forward to its full completion by second semester of 2023. Secondly, there is also Apricot, which will provide us with another 35 terabits per second of additional capacity within intra-Asia, and this is going to be activated by 2024. This time, connecting the country to the likes of Japan, Taiwan, Guam, Singapore, and Indonesia. This even comes with 2 new cable landing stations for even greater diversity, one in Baler and another one in Davao. And with this, we expect to hasten the digitalization that is going to happen within the Visayas and Mindanao region. Clearly, PLDT is at the forefront in boosting the Philippines' connectivity to the rest of the world, with our global footprint coming out of 19 international subsea system investments, and now delivering a total of over 130 terabits per second of aggregate capacity, growing well on track towards our petabyte ambition. Our subsea cable systems are strategically linked to our network of data centers to make it even more seamless and convenient for interested hyperscalers and cloud companies to set up their point of presence or region here in country. Take Jupiter, ADC, and Apricot, for example. All these will actually be connected directly to our newest and biggest data center yet, which is Vitro Santa Rosa. I'd like to speak a little bit about Vitro Santa Rosa, which will be our hyperscale-grade facility rising by the end of 2023 within a 5-hectare property and with an initial power capacity of 36 megawatts. It will even have its own power substation within the data center compound to make sure that we reduce the points of failure in power transmission. The site will definitely leverage Renewable, 20% when we initially start on the day of launch, with a roadmap to increase following PLDT's sustainability commitments. It will likewise host the richest IP ecosystem, courtesy of the Philippine Internet Exchange, the Vitro Internet Exchange, and other internet exchanges, which will help bridge cloud and content to the local eyeballs and deliver the best possible experience across all users. Vitro Santa Rosa will be LEED certified, a good mark of a sustainable facility, and we've engaged the services of global experts in as early as the design phase to make sure that we achieve this. Having the largest data center footprint in the country, we recognize our responsibility to operate and build sustainably. Today, 6 out of the 10 operational data centers that we have already started to integrate renewable energy into our power mix with the intent to steadily increase this towards a shift on renewable energy as more supply becomes available. As was mentioned and reiterated by our President and Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Al Panlilio, yesterday, the hyperscale revolution requires deeper consciousness and deliberate action towards greater sustainability. And for us, this will be the only way to proceed. Thus, PLDT has made its commitment publicly to achieve 40% reduction on Scope 1 and 2 carbon emissions by 2030 and pursue the road to net zero by 2050. As we continue to build world-class digital infrastructure to strengthen our position as the next hyperscale destination within Asia Pacific, we remain guided by an even bigger mission, and that is to help build a sustainable future for every Filipino. I'd like to wrap up by sharing a quick video that shows how PLDT is trying to piece everything together as far as all of these digital infrastructure investments are concerned to really create the right hyperscale ecosystem in the country.
The Philippines is rapidly emerging as the next hyperscale destination of Asia Pacific. With a youthful population hungry for digital content, a rapidly growing digital economy, and relentless investments on world-class hyperscale digital infrastructure. Championed by the country's fully integrated telco, PLDT. With its largest network of world-class data center facilities across the country, Vitro expands further with its 11th biggest facility yet, Vitro Santa Rosa Hyperscale Data Center. Designed with high-level power reliability and unmatched network diversity, it will host the richest IP ecosystem in the country, where the world's largest cloud platforms, most accessed global internet content, and the region's best carrier meet, converge, and synergize. Built with global-class sustainability in mind and operated with over 20 years of data center expertise, Vitro data centers are strategically connected to PLDT's robust domestic fiber optic network and growing international subsea cable systems. The Jupiter cable system transports massive data across the Pacific straight to and from Vitro data centers. It spans over 14,000 kilometers from Daet, Camarines Norte, Philippines to Maruyama and Shima in Japan and North America. Jupiter is now the fastest cable system directly connecting the Philippines to the US, and the first in the Philippines to deploy a DWDM system that can deliver up to 500 gigabits per second per wavelength in its initial design, and an open cable model to efficiently power up hyperscale bandwidth. Complementing Jupiter is the 9,400-kilometer-long Asia Direct cable system that will connect the Philippines to Japan, China, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Thailand, and Singapore. Once fully equipped, the Asia Direct cable can provide up to 36 terabits per second of additional network capacity between the Philippines and major hyperscaler hubs in the region. Meanwhile, the upcoming Apricot cable system will boost route diversity within the Philippines as it lands in 2 new cable landing stations in Baler and Davao, while connecting the country to Japan, Taiwan, Guam, Indonesia, and Singapore. The Jupiter, ADC, and Apricot cable systems will boost PLDT's international network capacity to over 130 terabits per second, deliver hyperscale bandwidth to and from Vitro data centers, and solidify the country's position as Asia-Pacific's next hyperscale destination. With even more subsea cable investments on the way, a growing network of world-class data centers, and constantly expanding domestic fiber and 5G rollouts, the digital future of every Filipino has never looked brighter.
Thank you once again for that wonderful presentation, Mr. Gary Ignacio. Now at this point, ladies and gentlemen, may I remind everyone to take an active part in our session by chatting us up or posting about this forum on your social media accounts. Don't forget, our official hashtag is #PHDigicon2022. Now, to give his expert insights on hyperscalers, we will now turn the floor over to the 5G and IoT Digital Transformation Lead, Partner Managed and as a Service APJC, that stands for Asia Pacific, Japan, and China, from Cisco. Let's all please welcome Mr. Lawrence Ballestrin.
Welcome to all our attendees in person and virtual. As mentioned, my name's Lawrence Ballestrin and I lead service creation for Cisco's IoT and private 5G for Asia Pacific. I have the privilege of working with our partners on collaborating on ways to create managed services. I'd like to thank the PLDT for the opportunity to share some thoughts here today. If you'd like more information on anything I discuss, please reach out to me, the Cisco or the PLDT teams. I thought it'd be great to kick off with the why. Why should we all work together to provide the hyperscale revolution? I think Cisco's purpose touches it nicely. Cisco's purpose is to bring an inclusive future for all to life in Asia Pacific by being a partner of choice in the region's digitalisation and creating the best experiences and outcomes for our customers, partners and communities. It's all about the experience and the outcome. Technology and processes are the enabler to deliver it. Bear with me a second. Where's the slide? Should have used the laptop. Let me briefly touch on 3 areas and use Cisco as an example on how companies are partnering to help it. Bringing the data together securely. The power of cloud, public, private, hybrid, is how it brings data together from many sources to make it easily accessible so we can use it in running our businesses, improve user experience, and drive operational efficiencies. Moving all this data around most of the time outside your control makes the ability to protect it from an unauthorized access and use extremely important. There are multiple ways we need to secure the data. We need to secure it as it travels through the network, when users and devices are accessing it, and we need to make sure that the data itself is secure from unlawful access. Cybersecurity is now a key part of any security solution and requires its own specialised toolset. For example, visibility tools like Cisco Talos is constantly monitoring to identify and protect users and IoT devices against these attacks. Secondly, sustainability. Like PLDT, Cisco is leveraging a mix of approaches to drive sustainability. We are updating our processes across the business at every stage of the product lifecycle, resulting in more energy-efficient products, both in the way we make them and the way they consume energy. We are also accelerating our renewable energy and investing in carbon removal and other climate solutions. The use of our products is also driving sustainability. For example, combining 5G and IoT solutions give us the ability to connect even more devices at faster speeds and collect data in near real time to make decisions about the most efficient way we are utilising our assets. Decisions like, if a floor in my office building is empty, why do I need to heat and cool it for that period of time? Let's save the energy and the running costs. Embracing hybrid working is another way we are driving sustainability. During the pandemic, for most of us, the office was our home, so the easiest and quickest tools we had to connect and collaborate was what we were using to keep working. Now in a hybrid environment, where you can work anywhere, home, office, hotel, etc., we need solutions that can seamlessly allow you to collaborate regardless of location, tools or devices. Cisco WebEx is a great example of a hybrid working tool, allowing you to connect from a laptop, mobile device or room, whether you are using WebEx, Teams or Zoom seamlessly. Hybrid working tools and other sensors also generate additional data, which can help you understand how resources in the building are being used. Those insights are key to creating more sustainable buildings by understanding what is actually needed and can influence future designs. By utilising IoT toolkits, like Cisco Spaces, to collect data from WebEx devices, Wi-Fi access points, air quality and occupancy sensors, etc., you can capture many insights and turn buildings into smart buildings. We are already seeing this influence meeting room layouts and sizes, given that not everyone attends a meeting in person. So the rooms can be smaller, but there still needs to be a seamless way to join remotely. And finally, empowering the ecosystem. The days of doing all yourself and closed ecosystems are gone. Partnering is the key to a successful end-to-end solution. Let's all focus on what we're good at and work together. While we all love Cisco end-to-end solutions, realistically, Cisco appreciates that we are part of the solution, not all of it. Cisco has many marketplaces and programs that open up partners with industry and domain expertise, adding them to the ecosystem. Our managed service provider partners, like PLDT, are the glue that brings Cisco and ecosystem partners together, so we can create that end-to-end managed service that delivers the desired outcome. We cannot forget the importance of end-to-end user experience and the operational requirements, which becomes more complex with multiple partner solutions. Cisco's standard-based approach and investments in companies like AppDynamics that allows you to quickly understand if users are experiencing poor performance, and Thousand Eyes, which identifies performance issues across the complete path and application, helps to reduce the complexity of this multi-partner ecosystem. Another great example of the ecosystem partners working together is Cisco and Microsoft. They will soon offer the ability to run Microsoft Teams natively on Cisco rooms and desk devices certified for Microsoft Teams, with the options of Teams as the default experience. Thank you all for listening, and let me leave you with Cisco's goal. Help customers connect, secure, and automate to accelerate their digital agility in a cloud-first world. Once again, thank you, and Cisco looks forward to being your partner of choice in the region's digitalisation and creating outcomes for your customers, partners, and communities. Thank you.
All right, a round of applause, please, again for Mr. Lawrence Ballestrin of Cisco. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the much-awaited panel discussion for this session. Our panel of speakers will focus on convergence towards sustainability, balancing HS industry growth, and environment impact. So joining me back on stage are our speakers, the Managing Director, S&P Technology, Mr. Jerhong Phua. We also have the VP and Head Strategic Business Development, PLDT Enterprise, Mr. Gary F. Ignacio. Chief Sustainability Officer and Head of Investor Relations at PLDT and Smart, Ms. Melissa Vergel de Dios. And 5G and IoT Digital Transformation Lead Partner Managed and as a Service, APJC Cisco, Mr. Lawrence Ballestrin. And finally, also joining us, we have the Head of Technology and Alliance Global Sales, Cloud and Network Services of Nokia. Let's all please welcome Mr. Abhay Savargaonkar. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the stage. Let's get the ball rolling with our first question. We have, of course, Jerhong. Jerhong, can we just do a little check if you can hear us properly here? May you come off of on mute, please, sir. All right, let's try to see if we can get Jerhong's...
I'm here now.
All right, perfect. Okay, all good with us. Okay, let's kick off with you since you are the one, of course, on the big screen here. Tell us, you gave a very good presentation here on how the Philippines compares to the other countries when it comes to renewable energy, when it comes to penetration of the internet. But give us an idea of what you find unique about the Philippines' prospects when it comes to digital infrastructure that might be of interest to those hyperscalers looking to expand, particularly in the Philippines. What makes us so special?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Now, if you hear some background noise coming from me, I do apologize. There's some renovation going on in this building. Now, I have been fortunate enough working in S&P technology, media, and telco consulting services. I've been very fortunate to work with most of the major hyperscalers. And most of the hyperscalers engage us to look into the various markets, which are the markets that are most attractive for them and why. So basically to help them put forward a business case to enter a market, as well as to examine all the various factors of why they should be in a particular market. Now, I just want to reiterate that in terms of comparing to Southeast Asian markets or perhaps even the whole APAC, right? It's not a mutually exclusive thing, right? So it's not like, if a hyperscaler chose Indonesia, for example, they're not going to be choosing Malaysia or somewhere else, right? So in terms of that, they are actually looking at Southeast Asia as a hub. And clearly to them, Philippines is now, due to a couple of reasons which are put forward, becoming one of the top destinations. So in other words, the share of mind for hyperscaler when it comes to Southeast Asia as a hub, Philippines is gradually taking up a bigger chunk of the entire pie. Now, why is it so? There are 6 major factors actually in the research that we've conducted for hyperscalers. First of all, as I mentioned, the Philippines has the second most, the second largest population in Southeast Asia. Just look at Indonesia, for example. Indonesia has experienced hyper sort of a growth in terms of data center over the past few years. And one of the key things that hyperscaler went to Indonesia was nothing other than because it has the largest population in Southeast Asia, right? Even though infrastructurally it's nowhere comparable to the Philippines even, right? So I think don't fight the trend, right? Hyperscalers will be coming, right? And obviously 5 of them are already here. More will be coming to the Philippines simply because Philippines offer a young demographic population that are media and tech savvy. Everyone knows the Filipinos are extremely great at social media and are extremely tech savvy. And this is one of the key attraction of Philippines as a data center market, especially in the Southeast Asia region. Now, the other thing that we have talked about, and Gary has hammered home, is the subsea cable investment, right? Gary talked about the Jupiter cable system and connecting Philippines to Japan and USA, and definitely in terms of looking at subsea cables and the sort of data center infrastructure investment, this represents a very unique and interesting proposition to the hyperscalers, and they're clearly excited about that, right? And one of the things that you guys may not realize, okay, and which actually position the Philippines front and center as a hyperscaler data center market, it is its legacy and its reputation as a business process outsourcing market. The reputations that the Philippines have built up over the years in BPO market actually has played well in terms of data center market site selection or location selection, purely because the Philippines has rightfully earned that reputation as a trusted partner. And clearly, if you look at data center, right, it's pretty much a bit of a outsourcing, if you will. Cloud obviously is a outsourcing. So in terms of BPO market reputation for the Philippines, actually played very well in terms of evaluating Philippines as a data center location. Now, another thing that the hyperscalers typically look at, right, which is very practical, is all about electricity cost. Gradually, I think a lot of companies, or whether it's private equity, investment management, and hyperscalers, they are realizing that when they compare all the electricity costs, right, across Southeast Asia, Philippines is actually not the most expensive, and clearly is on the actually lower cost countries within that group of markets that they are evaluating, and that actually, in essence, move Philippines up in terms of some of the evaluation criteria as well. Now, of course, we have talked about it a lot here in this particular breakout session, and which is obviously the main topic, sustainability, right? As you can tell, the Philippines is, and PLDT specifically, not just talking the talk, but walking the talk, so to speak, in terms of sustainability drive. So I think that is capturing a lot of attention of the hyperscalers, because now, as I presented earlier, hyperscalers are moving into carbon neutral, right? And clearly, being sustainable or sustainability focused and energy efficient focused, is one of the key evaluation criteria, so to speak, amongst the hyperscaler. Last but not least, which is probably quite fairly consistent across the various countries, government sponsorship, initiative to encourage investments, right, of data centers or investment in cloud, so on and so forth, that will actually drive the hyperscalers into considering a particular market. Now, clearly, the Philippines Board of Investment has this Make It Happen initiative to drive foreign investment, and now hyperscalers were actually named as the sixth sector under this Make It Happen initiative. And I think that actually, in our view, when we conduct macroeconomic analysis on behalf of our hyperscaler clients, that actually played very well in Philippines' favor. So that's all I have, 6 major factors. But clearly, to my clients and to everyone, I would say trend is your best friend, right? The demographic trend of the Philippines spells that the media and tech-savvy population is here to stay and expanding, and clearly, that is the right, focus of all these hyperscalers when they evaluate a market, and definitely it puts the Philippines in a very good light amongst all the countries out there. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That was a very comprehensive answer. I hope that the audience got that. But I think you highlighted a couple of points that you already mentioned in your presentation in terms of the young demographics, and of course, you mentioned that it's not a mutually exclusive decision on where to position the hyperscale in this hub of Asia and Southeast Asia in particular. So thank you so much for that answer. Let's move on to the next question. This one is for Gary Ignacio of PLDT Enterprise. No, and a wonderful presentation you had there. You mentioned the term hyperscale ecosystem. So we're well aware of what hyperscale centers are, but what does this ecosystem necessarily consist of? How does this work? Is this existing in other countries? How will we do it in the Philippines in particular?
Yeah, thank you, Danny. I'd like to say that it's everything that Jerhong mentioned and many more. But seriously, it sounds like a complex term, but we just simply mean that we're trying to put together all the digital infrastructure investments that are needed to make sure that the country is ready for the impending digital revolution that, as we all know, is already happening. So it's putting everything that's needed from subsea cables, and we've spoken a lot about that. We've spoken about data centers to make sure that we can host these massive IT infrastructure here in the Philippines so that, these hyperscalers, these cloud companies can also bring their content and platforms here. And it's also about making sure that we are well connected to our local consumers and businesses, both by way of fiber or even wireless, so that they'll be able to get the best possible user experience. And I have to add to that the sustainability factor, because as we all know, we cannot be doing all of this without looking after our very own planet. So it's all about that. And hopefully, with the readiness, as soon as we're able to piece everything together, the hyperscalers will also be convinced that the Philippines has what it takes in terms of hosting them and letting them grow in this side of the world.
All right, and as Jerhong mentioned, sustainability is something that attracts investors as well. Now, you showed, speaking of sustainability, you showed us a picture of Vitro Santa Rosa set to launch next year. How different is this from the other data centers you have?
Yeah, so we're very, very excited, Danny, with the upcoming Vitro Santa Rosa facility. Because first and foremost, we're envisioning this to be the largest hyperscale data center facility in the country once it opens by late 2023. Sustainability is definitely a cornerstone, as we have mentioned. Melissa also said that in everything that we do, we have to make sure that sustainability is deeply embedded. And as we've mentioned, we're not taking any chances. We want to make sure we put in the best practices, the best technology, and that's why this early, in as early as the design phase, we've already contracted a global class company. You've probably heard about NG, just to make sure that we put everything that is necessary so that we deliver on that promise.
All right, and speaking of that promise, Melissa, you have quite a challenge ahead of you because you're the one that's going to have to push the sustainability agenda while the other side of profit is going to try and grow the business as fast as possible. How can you reconcile this and to what point, how can you balance this need for major growth, big capital investments, intensive power usage with your what should be your core value of sustainability?
I guess for PLDT, it's very fortunate that there's a realization that it's not all about profit alone. Profit might be a very short-term target, but if you don't do business sustainably and responsibly, that's going to go away pretty soon. So I think the data center business is one area where you see that you cannot get clients if all you will focus on is profit. So I think very early, as Gary already mentioned, for the data centers, recognizing that it's very power intensive, it's very water intensive, then you can actually address that by designing it very early in the, planning stage, right? So it's all about planning for it. It's all about focusing your operation so that you're efficient with the use of power. It's also about, I think there's a lot of talk about environmental impact. But I think what people don't realize is it's also very important, and sustainability is also about making sure that everything at the data center is secure, not only physically, but more importantly from a cyber perspective. Our clients have to be able to sleep at night knowing that we are on the ball and that we will not allow any of these cyber criminals to access data that have been entrusted to us or that are located in our data centers. So that's effectively how we view things at PLDT, that everything we do, whether it's providing connectivity to the home or providing connectivity and data center services to our enterprise clients and our data center clients, it is designed into everything we do. It is part of our culture. It is not one thing, check the box thing, but really, hopefully, part of our DNA as a company.
And how can you define sustainable growth for PLDT, no? Especially with this new HS ecosystem?
So for PLDT, we effectively have articulated our ambition that we want to be the leading ESG telco in the region. Now that can mean many things, right? It can be, you won a lot of awards here and there, but we've basically tried to pin down what do you mean by ESG leadership. And that really is, I think, trying to get into the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, which means that we have to get a score of 88. We've been able to progress very nicely from 47 in 2020, 51 in 2021, and then now 59. Now, it looks like a score, but when you unpack that score, it actually means doing things very, very granularly on different levels. It's on the environmental side, it's on the social side where you look at your people group policies, it's about governance. So there is a roadmap, not only a decarb roadmap, but a sustainability roadmap to take PLDT to that regional leadership that we are hoping to attain. So for the data centers, that's only one component of our ambition to be a leader. And effectively, we have a very concrete plan to take us. And it's not only the sustainability office, it's each of the units within PLDT. They have their respective assignments to be able to take us on that roadmap towards the goal of being a leading ESG telco in the region.
All right, so targets and following a path, defining that before you actually get on the path is the most important part, probably the hardest part, no? All right, thank you for that, Melissa. Now let's try to make this more tangible to our consumers here and end users here. This question is for Abhay. How can Nokia leverage this hyperscaler platform, hyperscaler ecosystem to enable the CSP to provide innovative services to your end customers?
Great question. Actually, if I look at the audience here, I understand most of the people here are from enterprise, right? One big change that we have seen in the enterprise ecosystem after pandemic is enterprise don't want to own any infrastructure go forward. They want to leverage it, whatever they want to use, they want to do it as use case, as a service. Now that's a fundamental shift in the behavior from what used to happen earlier. What does this mean from a CSP perspective or vendors like Nokia perspective is that you need a marketplace, you need use cases in the marketplace, and that should be available to the enterprise to be used as and when they desire. And 5G enables that very nicely. So the ecosystem part, apart from the fiber infrastructure, connectivity, data center creation, there is a new kind of an ecosystem which is coming into play. And that ecosystem consists of a cloud infrastructure provider at the base of it, which is hyperscaler in this case, or it could be PLDT. So there is a cloud infrastructure provider. On top of cloud infrastructure provider, you would have network function providers, people like us in Nokia, who will expose the APIs of the network functions. Then there is a software developer ecosystem which will come into play, which will build up use cases based on the APIs that are being exposed to them. And this software developer ecosystem use cases will be on a marketplace which will be consumed by the enterprises. And if you look at it, the whole system becomes that much more efficient because now it is a shared ecosystem. And that's where the power of saving the environment, sustainability, everything comes into play because it's a shared ecosystem by thousands of enterprise using the same infrastructure. And this is how we are seeing the trend. Most of the CSPs trying to coordinate with all these ecosystems to build use cases which will be used by enterprise.
All right, and just a follow up on that, compare this to the traditional deployment, wherein in an operator's data centers, this is how it's deployed. What would be the benefits of this, especially using a public cloud?
So, typically till date, what has been happening is CSPs will create their own cloud infrastructure. One of the worst things that happens for CSPs, operators, is you have a peak load which is like 30% higher than the average load, but that peak load is only for, say, 15 or 20% of the time. Now, the moment you have to create an infrastructure for the entire peak load, and that is what you do all the time. What cloud gave us the flexibility was to use the capacity of the peak load during various times by various people. This is replicated in a much better fashion on a hyperscaler platform. And therefore, what becomes is you have a common platform which is used by multiple entities, so it's horizontal scaling and using the platform more efficiently and effectively. So that's on the base layer of how do we do it. Traditionally, CSPs tend to provide everything based on connectivity. Connectivity has been the main forte of what is provided to the enterprise today from CSP side. Tomorrow, it is not going to be about connectivity because the whole thing is about capability. So you are exposing the network capability to the enterprise to use it rather than connectivity. By connectivity, CSPs spend a lot of money, but earn very little. Rest of the people earned a lot. 5G is the transformation wherein CSPs, when they expose capability, they will be equal stakeholders in what they will be able to earn, and they will not allow somebody else to exploit all the infrastructure creation that they are doing for 5G. So that's the way we look at it.
Very interesting. So cost efficiency there and moving from connectivity to capability is the new game plan here. Now, this question for Lawrence of Cisco, just following up on the presentation you gave as well. Give us a feel of the day-to-day business of Cisco and how sustainability is experienced over there.
Yeah, no, great question. Is that on? Yep, great question. We're in business. So it's amazing how things have changed. So once upon a time, sustainability in proposals, etc., was a tick in the box that everybody expected you to do it. But now everybody not only wants to know how you're doing it, they want to see not only the plan for today, but the plan for 2, 3, 4, and 5 years. So, constantly we see in every day-to-day how we go on and customers ask us for technology refreshes. So there's always some input there about how more efficient is the technology we're using. Simon mentioned it yesterday with our Silicon One chips, that 96% reduction in efficiency. So that's constantly coming up in the way we do business. And what's also coming up is Cisco's very big on, how do we handle the e-waste that's created whenever there's a refresh as well. So not just remembering that we're trying to replace something today. It's making sure we take into consideration the existing equipment, how that gets handled responsibly, and how we make sure that helps us going forward.
All right, so end-to-end sustainability path there. Another question here for you. How important is the convergence between technology and management of services?
Look, I think convergence is key. I mean, that goes hand in hand with, the partner ecosystem that we've all been talking about. Once upon a time, everybody had their domain and they knew to stay in their lane. Now we're all working together. Everybody's good at a certain area and we bring our partners in for that. And convergence is no different. Recently I've responded to probably half a dozen tenders for major infrastructure projects. And the first thing you always get asked for is where's your converged network that we can put our building management systems on top of, run our unified communications, run all the technology across it. It's all about converging that technology. And as was mentioned earlier as well, it's the preference now to deliver it as a service outside the cloud. So, it's more efficient, deliver it from the cloud, have less on site. So that works hand in hand as well.
All right, and final question here, which is a pretty tough one. And I remember having hosted another PLDT Enterprise event where this was actually the main topic, and that is talent crunch in the market. Is there enough talent, whether this is the Philippines or globally, to support such a big demand for the future when it comes to digital technology?
That's another great question. Look, you'd like to think there is, and we do our best to make sure the answer is yes to that, but there's a lot of things that we do as well. So with Cisco's Network Academy, that's been going for 25 years. I wouldn't even hesitate to guess how many hundreds of thousands of people have gone through that academy, not only to up themselves with Cisco skills, but also give them transferable skills, for other jobs and positions they may have. And we're constant learning. So I personally think the answer to that should never be yes, because we're constantly evolving, technology's changing, we're always learning. So yeah, we'll do our best to make it yes, but I don't think we're there yet.
All right, I mean, this is the talent, right? The people of the future. We don't know what skills yet are required, but
Correct.
Necessarily the talent should exist with the proper upskilling. And hopefully some resources and education from our end. Thank you so much to our panelists. So once again, it was of course Mr. Jerhong Phua, Mr. Gary Ignacio, Ms. Melissa Vergel de Dios, Mr. Abhay Savar Gaonkar, and of course Mr. Lawrence Ballestrin. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, so much information and insights, of course, from this session. Hopefully, you learned as much as I did. This was, of course, entitled Powering the Hyperscale Revolution. Now, Sir Gary, please do stay on stage because we will be giving us your closing remarks and a synthesis on this discussion. Mr. Gary Ignacio of PLDT Enterprise.
So, good morning, and thank you very much once again to each and every one of you for sharing your morning with us. I hope that you were able to pick up a thing or two about what we are trying to advocate here. Clearly, the hyperscale revolution is upon us. Sustainability is going to be core to what we will collectively do together, of course, with all our partners, with all of you. So on behalf of PLDT Enterprise and our sponsors, our co-presenters for the event, we'd like to thank everyone and wish you a good morning. Please stay tuned. There's going to be more.
Thank you so much. Of course, Mr. Gary Ignacio, and dear speakers, please do come back on stage for a photo opportunity. And may I kindly call on Mr. Jerhong Phua as well to join us here virtually if we can. Again, Ms. Melissa, Mr. Abhay, and Lawrence, please do join us on stage with Sir Gary. We can go around you, Jer. And to everyone in the ballroom, please prepare your biggest smiles because we will be taking some photos of our audience as well. All right, everyone, our speakers and panelists, on stage, please. Okay, let's try not to cover Jer. Okay, now one with the audience. How do we do this group fee? How about Sir Jer? How will he join us? Okay, so I think we turn this way and to our audience. Okay, so we will be coming down, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, how about Sir Jer? All right, everyone, big smiles, masked or not. All right, thank you, audience. Oh, good job, they did stand there. Thank you so much. All right, and before we end this session, just a quick thank you once again to our official event partners. Flash on your screens. Thank you so much to these wonderful partners. Hope you enjoyed the booth as well outside. And of course, to our co-presenter for this session. Now, ladies and gentlemen, from Hyperscalers, our next Tech Leadership Forum session will inspire you with the boundless future growth in store for your business. So our discussion on emerging technologies will be coming up. So please do not forget to post about the event using our official event hashtag, that is hashtag PHDigicon 2022. And of course, to our live and virtual members, please answer and submit the feedback form for the session because it will entitle you to our raffle draw at the end of the day. And also go around, visit our sponsor booths, check out what they have in store. Coffee and snacks will be served here in the ballroom. I'm Danny Laurel and I'll be seeing you in just a few minutes.